Satyabama Institute of Science and Technology.
Good day to everyone. I am architect Esther Clifford. I am from the School of Building and Environment, Department of Architecture, Satyabama Institute of Science and Technology. We're going to continue reading about climate and architecture with examples of climate from India. So, what are the different climate typologies according to Köppen that falls in India? You can see that we have the montane kind of colder climate towards the northern part. We have humid subtropical alongside the northern and mid-western part of India. And then as we move towards the desert in Rajasthan, we have the arid. Moving from Rajasthan towards the mid, we have the semi-arid, and all the green spaces you can see are the tropical climates. And in specific, we have the tropical wet, which is a lot of rainy days alongside the coast over here, starting from Kerala, moving towards Maharashtra, which also covers the Union Territory of Goa. And the rest you can see a lot of tropical wet and dry, which have distinct wet seasons and distinct dry seasons. Throughout the middle, you can see a bit of semi-arid, especially around the Deccan Plateau, moving towards the south of Tamil Nadu. So now coming to tropical wet and dry. If you're going to specifically talk about wet and dry, it is moderately hot. It has high levels of humidity, and it is mostly associated also along the coastal area of India. Temperatures don't fluctuate as much in these regions, and there are distinct wet and dry seasons. That is, there are distinct seasons where there is rain, and then there's distinct season where there's not much rain or no rain at all. Temperatures are usually moderate to high throughout the year. Now, what are the components that make up, tropical wet and dry climate? First off is the precipitation. We already talked about it: distinct wet, distinct dry, and the weather. We also see convectional thunderstorms day to day. The locations are in the mid states of Madhya Pradesh, Orissa, West Bengal. As you move down, you have Maharashtra, Karnataka, and the five southern states. Flora and fauna, because of the kind of wet and dry conditions, there's a very diverse flora and fauna which forms the biodiversity. I think the Nilgiris is a very good example of a biosphere which has, tropical climate, and the vegetation, again, it's biologically diverse. And when it's coming to the what exactly is tropical, tropical is generally characterized by hot, wet summers, high levels of humidity, and a little change between the daytime and the nighttime. That is, there is not much of diurnal change in the temperatures. Movement of air is a very important strategy to make sure that we don't feel as sweaty and sticky for people. So, starting with the design strategies. First, we have the basic, passive strategy of orientation. In most regions in the wet and dry, it's best if we have the orientation towards the north and south with longer walls and longer surfaces, and east and west with shorter space. The spacings need to have connectivity and openings in between, so we can add atriums, we can add courtyards to increase cross ventilation, which is a very important aspect of this humid condition. Verandas form a very important role in this particular climate, because we need that open space around the building which acts as a buffer between the outside and the inside. Shading is not just for the sunshine but also for the rain that comes or shouldn't come within the building. There's something called night flushing, which we can do in tropical climate, where we restrict the amount of air that comes into the building in the daytime, and then we open the building up in the nighttime, and there's a huge gush of air that comes in, and it gets cool during the nighttime. This doesn't always work. I think when we are using the building during daytime, might not work as much, but it will work when you're using it predominantly in the nighttime. Then you have stack ventilation. So stack ventilation is again the the principle of convection, where you start pushing all the hot air outside, upward and outside, and so the cooler air stacks at the bottom. So you can use vegetation as a form of reducing the heat gain and making the space comfortable. And based on what kind of trees you have, you can actually work with the landscaping and use indigenous and native plants, so that there's not much of water usage as well. Very similar to the previous dry and arid, you can see how courtyards with an introverted morphology will help with creating better comfortable spaces. When it comes to materials, lightweight materials work really well with wet and dry conditions. Louvers can actually help in not only letting in light, but also letting in air in the form of ventilation. And colors, again using lighter colors which will help in reflecting back the heat, are definitely a design strategy that we can work with. So now what are the design inferences? That is, overall, what can we see from this? The morphology is where we maximize skin opacity, that is, we make as many openings as possible, and the way that we stack the building, make sure that there's a lot of ventilation and hot air is pushed out. We reduce internal obstructions in terms of density, and we also usually arrange the building so that they're not spaced very dense together. The roof area, as we know, we might even have to work with portal roofs or sloped roofs where there's more of rainfall. We need deflective or reflective surfaces. We need larger openings to let in ventilation, shading not only for rain but also for sunlight, and thicker walls, again with larger thermal mass to reduce the kind of heat that's coming into the building. So these are a few architects who work, predominantly with this particular climate. We have Suresh Berry, who's worked with a lot of projects where there are typical, wet and dry climate. We have Laurie Baker, who has also worked on tropical wet, but also tropical wet and dry towards the northern part of the states. And then we have Chitra Vishwanath of Biome, who has been working on distinct wet and dry climates as well. This is just to give an overview of, going back and looking at their works. So the example that I've taken for this particular climate is the Collage House, which is located near Mumbai. This has been featured as one of the most unique houses in the world, and you can see why it gets that distinction because of the kind of windows that they've arranged all around the facade. Yes, this is in a typical wet and dry tropical climate. So this is actually inspired as a collage because you can see how all the windows are put together in a particular design. And it's interesting to note that this house used a lot of materials that would have otherwise gone to scrap or landfills. They took the materials and they refurbished and they reused it in this building. This is by S plus PS Architects. So they've used a lot of materials which have been reused. Like I said, there are recycled columns or pillars which they've taken from local traditional houses. They've taken metal pipes which act as a water feature and also in the rainwater harvesting system which is within the building itself. And the style itself is inspired by the informal settlements of Bombay, where you can see a very vibrant, colorful atmosphere when once you cross it, because they tend to use a lot of discarded materials within their housing. And there's a juxtaposition of contemporary and traditional within this building itself. So you can see how they've taken windows from different buildings from different eras, and they've put it all together to form the the front facade of the building. And they're not locked; they're all reachable, and they can use it because this will help in actually bringing in a good amount of ventilation. And you can see how they've also introduced smaller water features which will help in evaporative cooling during the distinct dry seasons. Coming to what kind of temperatures and what kind of daylighting do we see in this particular place, you can see how temperatures don't vary as much throughout the year. And there's again not much of a difference in the diurnal temperatures. You can see it's almost constantly above 27 degrees Celsius and leading on. Even in December you can see very similar kind of temperatures. And even with the distinct wet and dry seasons, you can see how the daylight hours are again more or less the same, because there's a lot of sunny hours even during the days when there's rain. Now this is where the distinct wet and dry season comes into place, because you can see the rainfall. You can see how from June to October there is a lot of rain, especially peaking during July, and the rest of it there's almost there's zero number of rainfall days in February. There's just one day in January, and then closer to June you can see that there's a little increase in the number of days of rainfall. So now what are the techniques that they've used? So like we already saw, this is a juxtaposition of both modern and traditional architecture. So they've taken some of the modern components or the modern technologies. They've used solar panels on the roofs so that they can be powered with renewable energy. They've repurposed pipes which not only act as an aesthetic element but also bring down water during the rainy season into the rainwater harvesting pit. There's the north-south orientation with longer walls on the north and south. They have projected balconies, and this is the really interesting part. Within the site and within the building itself, at the lower basement level, they have a 50,000 liter rainwater harvesting tank. So this was actually excavated during the initial foundation process, and they started using it within the site itself. And now when it's in use, when the people are using the building, it's being used as a rainwater harvesting tank which they can reuse the water with. And there's spouts alongside the repurposed pipes, which also turns into a water feature, where during rainy season when it's raining outside, there's also an onslaught of water coming through these repurposed pipes within the building itself. There's a large courtyard, and there's ample number of openings which are large, which helps with cross ventilation. So you can see the entire plans starting from the ground floor moving on to the third floor plan. So the ground floor has the access to the rainwater harvesting pit as well. And they have this is the beautiful courtyard that starts with the first floor. So the first floor is where the major activities happen, and the courtyard rises till the second floor. And from the third floor again, there are other activities, especially at the top, where they have this beautiful bedroom with repurposed columns. We'll see pictures of that. So this is through the section you can see how the top floor is being used for one bedroom. So there are a few there's this large family living here, and one of the couples in the family has the master bedroom, which is on the top floor, where they've used repurposed columns from older buildings. And you also have a view into the courtyard from the top floor. And this you can see number 13 here, which is the rainwater harvesting pit. Like I said, only the car shed and the rainwater harvesting pit and common activities happen at the ground floor level. The main activities start from the first floor level. So this is also because they've tried to reduce the cut and fill at the site level, working along with the topography of the existing topography of the site. And yes, finally you have the set of pictures to show you how they've been able to achieve all these strategies, not just again in terms of climate responsiveness, but also from the standpoint of aesthetics. So this picture actually gives you a nice insight into how they took the from the scrapyard they took these windows. These were the raw materials before they were actually given any kind of finishing, and how they were fit within the facade of the building. You can see how the entire facade is filled with these windows, which rightly gives the name of collage house. So I think this will help you get an insight into how even in modern times, with contemporary directions, you can still work with traditional techniques, working along with modern technological innovations and come up with really good design. Thank you.